Welcome back, everyone. Monday is World Food Day, and this year the United Nations is highlighting the critical role of water. Freshwater resources per person have declined 20% in just the past 2 decades. About 2.4 billion people live in water-stressed countries, and many are smallholder farmers who already struggle to meet their daily needs. Another 600 million people depend on, at least in part, on fish, seafood, and plants harvested from the water, and those food sources are being affected by water pollution, unsustainable practices, as well as climate change. Well, in China, researchers are working on developing a high-quality seed for farming to ensure the country's food security. Xia Rusha reports.
The autumn harvest for soybeans and corn in Henan province is complete, and the region is gearing up for the upcoming wheat sowing season. Zhou Zhengfu is in his lab, examining new wheat species has been developing. He's focused on improving their performance, making them resistant to lodging and disease, and enhancing their yield.
Today, the wheat yield in China has increased by tenfold compared to 70 years ago. This is largely attributed to advances in seed technology, which accounts for 45% of overall improvements. So, it's very significant to develop high-quality seeds.
Zhou works at the National Innovation Center for Biobreeding Industry in Xinxiang City, Henan Province. He's developed more than 30 high-quality wheat seed varieties. The region has many other research centers dedicated to seed varieties, positioning itself as the agricultural valley of central China, with a primary focus on developing high-quality seeds. There are over 70 seed industry companies, with more being welcomed to create a comprehensive agri-industrial supply chain through more startups and enterprises.
Our research center focuses on studying various seed varieties, such as wheat, corn, peanut, soybean, and some vegetables. Additionally, we provide technological support to seed industry enterprises, colleges, and institutes.
Most of the companies are in this building, enabling us to easily exchange information. We appreciate the generous support from the local government, including their assistance in transferring land for research purposes.
Seed production is of paramount importance to China, given its immense population and the resources invested in ensuring food security. As China's demand for food increases, agricultural experts are tasked with developing a wider range of seed varieties, not only to increase output, but also improve quality. Experts say self-sufficiency and self-reliance in seeds are key goals, as this will allow China to have greater control over food production and security. Seeds are the chips of agriculture. We still rely heavily on foreign imports for some types of seeds. China is increasing effort to promote the seed industry. Xia Rusha, CGTN, Xinxiang, Henan Province.
Now, on this World Food Day, Latin America's largest country is grappling with food insecurity. Volunteers with Brazil's biggest movement against hunger rallied over the weekend to protest and to launch a Christmas food drive for those in need. Lucrecia Franco is in Rio de Janeiro.
A rally addressing a pressing issue in Brazil, hunger. It's far from over, these volunteers shout. That is because in one of the world's largest food producers, many still don't get enough to eat. It was organized by Ação da Cidadania, Citizenship Action, Brazil's oldest and largest anti-hunger movement, currently celebrating its 30th anniversary and launching one more Christmas food campaign.
What we do on this campaign, Christmas Without Hunger, is to bring attention to the theme. So the population can once again understand that we're still in hunger and that we need to fight it. That's something that's, I mean, it's crazy that we have to keep saying that again and again and again, because people think that people eat only on Christmas.
They've done a heroic job, collecting a total of 55,000 tons of food donations in this Rio warehouse over 3 decades. Every October, the Christmas food campaign kicks off to bring relief for the end-of-year holidays. Ending hunger is now a top priority in Brazil, but the trends here seem to be moving in the opposite direction. According to a recent United Nations report, nearly 1/3 of Brazilians are currently suffering from some form of food insecurity. In absolute numbers, the study shows more than 70 million Brazilians did not always have enough to eat between 2020 and 2022. Scenes of hungry people in Brazil's urban centers have become more common, even though the country has resumed its anti-hunger program.
We got out of the ONU United Nations hunger map in 2014 because we had a public policy against hunger, and that was destroyed in the last 5 years. And together with COVID pandemic, we are now in this situation. We have the knowledge, we know how to do it, how to fight hunger. We've done it before. It's not magic, it's not a miracle, it's just political will.
The rally ended with a festive event for the little ones. The organizers say it's a way to show Brazilians must work together from an early age to start breaking once and for all Brazil's cycle of hunger and inequality. Lucrecia Franco, CGTN, Rio de Janeiro.
Well, what we eat and how that food is produced all affect water usage. We can make a difference by choosing local, seasonal foods and wasting less of it. From Austria, our reporter Johann Pleschberger looks at a number of initiatives that try to cut down on food waste.
Towards the end of lunchtime, this restaurant in Vienna offers leftover meals at a reduced price instead of throwing them into the bin. Customers are notified via an app whenever such meals are available.
It's a shame to throw food away. It's better to sell it on at a discounted price.
About 20 to 30% of the charge goes as commission to the Too Good To Go app, which provides this platform not just to restaurants, but also to supermarkets and other retailers selling their leftovers before they go to waste.
So in the beginning, when we launched Too Good To Go in Austria, nobody knew it, right? And we started with a few restaurants, a few bakeries in Vienna, but there wasn't really a lot of awareness for food waste. So it took us quite some convincing to get the first few partners on board. But after a couple of weeks, a couple of months, we got the first chains on board, the first restaurants, and then it really was a snowball effect.
Meanwhile, the originally Danish app has 7,000 partners in Austria and is available in 16 other countries too. But despite the growing awareness, food waste continues to be an issue.
Unfortunately, I also waste food. For example, I buy new bread every day, and the one from yesterday is often then thrown away.
It's not good if you throw out food, and you shouldn't just throw it out. You should try to reuse it.
I think going to the market is already a very sustainable way to buy products that you just need for one household. So I believe in supermarkets, the quantity of food and fruits are too much for one person, for example.
It's estimated the average Austrian throws out $800 worth of edible food each year. Too Good To Go is not the only initiative trying to stop this waste. NGOs collect leftovers and share them with people in need. Companies are turning old bread into beer or granola. Meanwhile, the Food Sharing Initiative provides public refrigerators where anyone can leave or pick up leftover food.
According to environmental organizations, however, sharing leftovers is not enough to stop food waste. What is needed is a responsible approach with this precious resource along the entire supply chain, from the farm to the retailer. Johannes Pleschberger, CGTN, Vienna.
For more on this year's World Food Day, we're joined by Tom Felke. Tom is an Associate Dean and Associate Professor at the Marieb College of Health and Human Services at Florida Gulf Coast University. Tom, thanks very much for joining us. Let's get kind of right to the point. What is the significance of this year's theme, water?
Well, when you think about it, water is essential to all life on Earth. It covers the majority of the surface. It makes up over 50% of our bodies. It produces our food. It supports livelihoods. but it's also a resource that is not infinite. And honestly, we need to stop taking it for granted the way that we have over the years, as what we eat and how that food is produced all affect water. So together we really need to start taking some serious action for how we are going to look at our water and really understand the impact that that has toward food insecurity as well.
I think anybody listening, talking about World Food Day, talking about water, many people think about the folks in Gaza who are suffering. Any update on what folks in Gaza are experiencing in terms of food and water shortage?
So everything that we're hearing coming out of Gaza is obviously tragic and very dramatic in terms of the impacts that the individuals there are going through, which is not unlike, unfortunately, what we've seen in other places around the country where conflict has come. Changes with water have come from rapid population growth, urbanization, economic development, climate change. However, conflict is the #1 major impact on food insecurity globally.
I was unaware of that. Talk about some of the other regions that you believe are really struggling on this food and water access, and coming from Florida's Gulf Coast, water being so important to everyone in your area.
So obviously, when we look at countries in sub-Saharan Africa and so forth, those are the countries that I think many individuals look at. Again, looking at any region where we currently have some type of conflict happening, that's also a major effect. But as you mentioned, right here in Southwest Florida, we see the impacts of water on not just our food production, but on things like our economy in terms of tourism and the service industry that we rely so heavily on here in Southwest Florida, so much so that our university has created a school dedicated to the study of water quality just for that reason.
I think up in the Bend there, up in Apalachicola area of Florida, for folks who don't know, all the runoff that comes from all the farms to the north, how harmful is farming to our water supply?
Well, it can be very detrimental if not done in a thoughtful manner, right? I hate to always put the blame on what the agriculture has done, because we know that it is such a meaningful and impactful part of our food production. However, there are obviously individuals and organizations that do not engage in best practices around this, and we see the result of it the impacts of that as a result.
Also, Tom, looking at the areas that we've been talking about, those areas that have been affected by conflict, also within the African continent, but here in arguably the most developed nation on earth, places like Flint, Michigan, and Jackson, Mississippi, the problems they had. How would you rate the U.S. government's response in those cases?
Absolutely, and this is something that we need to look at. Governments need to design science and evidence-based policies that really capitalize on data, innovation, cross-sector coordination in order to better plan and manage our water supply. And academia goes along with that. We need to be out there doing the research and doing the education, not just with our students, but with the general public as well, to make sure that we are really creating strong awareness among the population about just how precious of a resource water is.
Absolutely. Clean, drinking, potable water. Let's look into the crystal ball a bit, because this is a thirsty world. And we know that the population continues to spiral upward. What more can or should be done from an international level to help meet the goal coming in 2030?
So again, I think, this is not just a one entity issue. We can't just rely on governments to do this. We need to engage in those practices that I mentioned, but we then need to support those policies with increased investment, legislation, technology, capacity development. And we also have to incentivize our farmers in the private sector to engage in some integrated solutions for a more efficient use of water and for its conservation.
Well, we only have about 30 seconds left. Let's talk real briefly about the concern about food waste, because that's such a huge issue. How does water play into that?
Well, absolutely, because when we look at the compromises and the coping strategies that individuals make who are food insecure, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, not to make light of it, one of the things that we hear is that 40% of households that are food insecure water down their food or drinks as a result in order to make those last longer. So it just goes to show that that need is there, and we need to do everything we can to really ensure that we are getting people exactly what they need.